It seems to me that our creativity is truly what makes us civilized.
The most important time in a child's life are those first 5 to 10 years, when their brain is developing at a very, very rapid rate and they're soaking up everything around them.
It is a wonderful laboratory for understanding children and child development.
They're forming friendships. They're cooperating with other kids. They're inventing games.
Children's museums are not passive places to go.
Kids kind of see that kind of miracle of life and jump right into it.
Children may need different kinds of museums than adults.
The children and adults here working together is very important because, you know, for some children don't have that role model at home.
The Children's Museum is a place where we can build social capital.
They are a bridge to the future.
I had fun on the bridge, you know, running over them, building them, and, you know, seeing how the first bridges were.
The single most important thing that children's museums do is build a bridge between that child's potential and actually achieving that potential and doing something that is fun and stimulating and creates great things.
I had the opportunity of taking then my son to the Indianapolis Children's Museum. They provided this environment where both myself as an adult and my wife as an adult, with then our 4-year-old son and our 2-year-old daughter, had an opportunity to learn together.
I'm a site coordinator at an after-school arts program. I first attended the Brooklyn Children's Museum back around 1977 after my family and I had moved back from Panama. Having access to so many different kinds of artifacts and objects really helped to shape my own formation of the external world.
You're communicating to them the value of learning and preserving our past and learning from our past and learning about the future for the rest of those children's lives.
What I liked about the Children's Museum so much was the fact that I was respected. Even though I was 11, I was treated on the same par with adults. They recognized that that I was a human being, and I was treated with respect.
The Children's Museum can be a laboratory for civil society because it can set up situations and demonstrations where children will practice interacting with each other. A civil society, as I see it, is one in which you have people, whether they be in a family or a school or a community, interact together to help each other grow and develop, to work together to enrich each other as they learn and as they contribute to our world.
Just stand quietly and watch, because there's much more than running around going on. And you will see children repeat their own little experiments. You'll see them move on to other experiments. You'll see them communicate with other children nearby about what's happening. And with that quiet observation, you'll recognize that a great deal of learning is actually taking place.
Although it looks like kids are running around, there's a lot of focus, there's a lot of learning going on, there's a lot of interaction with parents.
Adult-child relationship is very important to us. We encourage the parent or the caregiver, whoever it may be, to not just send the kid in there and let them play while the parent's on the sideline. We want them to interact together, to work together, to discover together, and the relationship builds. And it's not only enjoyable for the child, but then the parent enjoys it too.
They're having fun and playing. You know, that's the work of kids, to play.
Children really do learn through play, and play really is for children much like what work is for adults.
Families are seeking ways to spend fun and educational time with children, and children's museums provide just that opportunity. Brooklyn Children's Museum was founded in 1899, and we are the world's first museum expressly for children. So we're really proud and very excited that this is the centennial year of the whole field. The original buildings were 2 Victorian mansions where kids could come in after school in their school groups and really spend many of their hours. We were open at that time 7 days a week, so it was very accessible. The idea of a children's museum was pretty startling.
When we decided to study children's museums, it was because it was a field that you could find the impact from. Children's museums are 100 years old this year. When I was a child, there was no ability to go to a children's museum. Children's museums, by and large, until the 60s, existed in very few cities. So one either had to live in Boston, Indianapolis, around Brooklyn.
It's a wonderful, as you say, laboratory for observational natural research, where researchers can go in, and we have had students from the university go to the museum and just observe the way children interact with the exhibits, with each other, and get a better understanding of child development in that way.
Some kids, that's the best way to learn, you know, make it exciting for them, make them get out there ready to do it. Once they start getting involved with it and actually can feel things in their hands, they start processing that information in their head a lot better.
Children's museums have maintained a really high emphasis on learning through experience, which was the foundation of the start of the Brooklyn Children's Museum. John Dewey's educational approach really emphasized the need for direct experience to learn. So children's museums still take that approach, and we do as well.
Piaget was one who first pointed out how children see and perceive the world from the point of view of themselves and not the point of view of others, and what he called egocentric thinking. One of my children said to me once, that I've often used in my classes, she was looking into my eyes, and she said, "Oh, I see me in your eyes." And then she said, "Do you see me in my eyes?"
It is a very structured place, but it allows for a child to use their own imagination to shape what they see.
It's so sensible to provide a museum for children that fits with their developmental stage. The way that children learn vocabulary, they learn to express feelings, they learn abstract concepts, and their world is very much a hands-on world. They relate with what they play with what they touch, with what they feel, with what they talk about.
It's driven by what they know about themselves as they experiment.
They're very excited about it. You know, a lot of them have never been to a museum before, and we're learning about how you handle objects, how you go into a new space.
Children are invited to touch and kind of find out the truth for themselves about that exhibit, rather than rely on the adult's interpretation, which may not even be correct.
Another area where children's museums have taken the lead has been in family learning.
I have an 18-year-old, and when he goes back to visit Indianapolis at 18, he wants to go back and see the Children's Museum. Why? Because it was engaging. He had things to do when he went in there. It was lively.
We implore the adults to become involved. We ask families to learn together. And that just increases the learning experience for the child tenfold.
Because you're a kid and this is a children's museum, you know, this is your territory, and it's there for you to kind of teach the adults to understand where you're coming from.
The family can learn together, and the family can learn together in a way that's best for everyone of every age.
Whether they have children who are toddlers or teenagers. Teachers really respond well to children's museums. They find that we're a tremendous resource for their children. When they come into the museum with their classes, they see their children shine in new ways that they may not see in a more traditional classroom setting.
Kids are in school in a very structured environment from 8 to 3, and when you're out of school, the first thing you want to do is get into something, and this is the perfect place to do it.
If we want to truly do something about education in America, it's not just funding our public schools, it's funding those programs that help children learn when they get into the public school.
I think in order to build bridges, there has to be trust. Trust in oneself, trust in one's environment, trust in the way in which something is presented. In a classroom, it can happen, but in a children's museum, it most always happens.
If you were to interview all of the legislators and mayors and governors in America, and if you were to ask them what is the single most important issue facing your district or your city or your state, I would venture that more than 85–90% would say education. But the education that we have to do of our legislators and our governors is to explain that education isn't just what happens in a school building. It's what happens in life, period.
Arts and cultural institutions, and particularly not-for-profit children's museums, are looking for being more part of, centered in the community, as opposed to sort of peripheral entertainment. And that means education, that means neighborhoods, that means attracting new businesses into town, being part of the Chamber of Commerce, understanding the political environment. I think those institutions will not only survive, but become the architects for the future of that community.
Everybody should be urged to use their imagination, you know, to create something. And that's a very valuable thing. And without proper funding, how far can they go? You know, there's so many things that could be done.
In children's museums, like no other field that I've worked in, you are expected to perform miracles on no budget at all.
I think they need to think of who can be their allies, who can be their community collaborators in order to make that happen.
City Year is a group that helps us out. They have volunteers coming in, staffing the exhibits every day of the week, and they make a big difference for us.
This is like an accomplishment to myself, like as far as giving back to the children, helping them out, another child in their life. You know, when they grow up, they may remember something that I told them or showed them here at the museum at a young age, and they might carry that on.
I know that funders like to see children's museums partner with other groups.
Sometimes it means not looking for traditional sources.
There is not only a sharing of resources, but I think a cross-pollination of ideas as well.
There are tremendous examples of children's museums developing strong and long-term collaborations with school systems, libraries, universities, and other kinds of educational sites.
If we show the economic and the educational impact on a child's learning, the impact on what it does in being able to contribute back to society and create jobs of young men and women who've gotten a good education because they were stimulated not just in the public school building but outside the public school building, and you put it in both educational and economic terms, all of a sudden it's educational and economic stuff.
At the end of the Bridges study, I think our most fervent desire is that it can stimulate discussion, research, and attention from the very people who can use it best. Museum professionals, educators, child advocates, policymakers. And the more ways they can find to come up with the research that acknowledges what they are doing well and what it means, that will lead to successful funding.
Assessment, looking at your programs and services in a way that connects and provides more value to those funding sources in the community that exist.
Jason, do you remember back in September of 1985, it was about 14 years ago, that you and I and Mom went to the groundbreaking of the Cleveland Children's Museum. And the next day, to our surprise, you were on the front page of the Plain Dealer, sitting there with a group of children. It's one of my favorite pictures ever.
Well, I remember the picture in the paper because we have it hanging on our wall, so I see it every day. I don't remember the first day as well, but I remember visiting the Children's Museum as a child and enjoying the experience, and when we'd go on a field trip there, just excited to go to school, and I just remember the fun experience of being there.
So now there are over 250 children's museums throughout the country, and even more opening throughout the world.
In fact, the word museum comes from the word memory. We want people to have memorable experiences.
I am really certain that they will have memories for the rest of their lives of some of the experiences they have in children's museums.
If we truly want to raise a generation of children who are healthy and productive members of our society, it starts with making sure that they achieve the potential of their creativity and that they have self-esteem.
I would tell the staff at the children's museums that they are doing wonderful, and I think that they really should keep it up because it's a great thing.
Watching children blossom every time they successfully achieve whatever the goal of the exhibit is, that really becomes payment enough.
Our challenge is to be scholars and showmen.
I can see what it was doing, and it was learning concepts and ideas and ways to solve problems that I didn't see before, but I see now, and I use them every day of my life.
I think in that it just helped me become a more worldly person and more grounded in my knowledge of things that went beyond my neighborhood or my environment.
Children are our hope for the future, and giving them the opportunity to value learning is a bridge to the future of museums in general and preserving learning for our world.